this is the main thing that I wanted to try to talk about today was this feeling, and I'm not sure if it's just a really personal feeling, but it's just like the feeling of powerlessness within the current world. And I don't like, it's not just specifically to do with finances. It's like, to me, I think about it in just about every sort of community that I can participate in that has to do with the internet, because that's where you get this huge, everybody's involved.
Yeah, I just think we are blind to the power that we do have, or we focus on the power that we don't have too much. Like when you first brought this up, my first response is like, the problem of distribution. What problem, right? I think that Kanye says they made us hate ourselves and love they wealth, right? Which is I think
and love they wealth. That's
love they
good,
wealth, right? And I think that's it. It's like, it's just a focus. Like if you focus on what you are capable, what you can do, it's probably more than what you would think you could do if you just focus on what you couldn't do. It's just a matter of what we focus on.
I mean, I think that's a really valuable perspective, but there must be a key point where the scales have tipped too far, and now, it's time for a revolution or something like that. And I'm not saying I necessarily think that's the moment we're at in the world, and we just need to destroy all of our current leaders and anarchy, right? It's like an anarchist is sort of a nihilist, or at least a nihilist about the system. It's like the only way to get through this is to just shut everything, like kill everything, destroy the system, and then build something up from the very low, from the ashes, not from a slightly. Although, why is that different than the Christian story? I mean, the Christian story tells us to consciously die, but Jesus died all the way, and then he resurrected.
Isn't that the difference between the system and the individual, though?
Yeah.
Bars.
No, I think that's
so
that's exactly
you're
what I
dying
would've said.
versus you're wishing the entire system to die.
Exactly.
But
because really, the more the reason why you'd want to destroy other things is probably, again, just conservatism. It would be easier for you to stay the way that you currently are if the other things were more different. So anarchists are really conservatives. So sorry to break it to you. Right. You don't want to die, and that's why you're trying to destroy everything around you.
Wow, that's a hot take.
I think anarchy does work, though, in a situation where the majority of people feel like they're disconnected from what the system has, right? It happened with the French Revolution.
Again, it becomes really important if the story you're being told about your reality is something that you can't affect at all.
I just how much expectation, how much political control do you expect to have, right? With the amount of people that are participating in the same space as you.
I think it's, and this is what I was thinking about earlier, is that I think it's probably just that I'm told about a story too much of the time that I have no influence over. The story that is most expedient to participate in is the national or international story.
Yep.
But that's the one that's the most disconnected from my immediate life.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating. It's frustrating to be told a story about something going wrong all the time, and then to consciously realize you can't do fuck all about it.
Yeah, and that, to tie back to my first point, I think that is actually fundamentally the problem, is that those things are not as much of a problem as you're focusing on them. So it's maybe you should be a little frustrated that you don't have has enough power in a group of millions of people, but then you should quickly get over that and do something else, right?
But how does this, I think it's possible to have a good friend tell you to do that, like you're telling me right now. And I think when I'm listening to my better senses, I tell myself that too. But all of the other voices that we surround ourselves with don't do that. And every time that we spend time, even just we're trying to strike up a conversation with a friend we haven't talked to in a little while, or even just on a weekly basis, it's the stories that crowd our conversations still tend to be these I would call them sort of parasitic stories that just make their way in and don't contribute any inspiration to your immediate. You have to do a lot of translation to break that story down into what you can actually do about it, because it's so far away from your influence.
And yeah, I think maybe it's a problem that we have so many shallow relationships that we quickly rely on these I think it makes us vulnerable to these parasitic stories.
Do you think it's almost sort of like it's not actually the case that things are so unequal that like we have no influence over the things that are most meaningful to us? We're just been lied to about what's most meaningful to us.
Yeah, they made us hate ourselves and love their wealth. Yeah, I do think that's exactly what I think. Yes.